Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Josie's Point of View, where we focus on human interest stories from the Carolinas and beyond. Today it's Wednesday and it's November the 3rd, 2021. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to my channel, I'd like to say welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you find the information on this channel to be informative. And if you're a return viewer, by all means, thank you so much for coming back. You know, I always say the tide changes so frequently here on the YouTube streets, so you need to acknowledge where your support comes from. And I want to tell you that I sincerely thank you for your support. Feel free to like and to share this video and take a minute and subscribe. Thank you so much. And our story today comes from Salisbury here in North Carolina. Take a look at the headline. And it reads, Resident seen eating a mouse, nursing home cited for negligence. I'll provide you with a summary here, and as always, I'll place links to a few of the full articles in the description box. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you know by now that all of my stories are verified by several sources before they are presented. I take time to make sure I've done my research so that we're addressing facts and not fiction. And this story was not part of my planned conversation for November, but it came across my desk early this morning. I noticed that it was published the end of October, and it was the craziest thing I ever read. So I had to stop everything and place more focus right here because I needed to research this topic and bring you the facts. And today we're talking about Accordius Health of Salisbury. Now there are several Accordius Health in the state, so it's important to specify that we're talking about Accordius Health that is located in Salisbury, North Carolina. And this is how the agency describes themselves, and this information here came from their webpage, and it reads, a 185-bed skilled nursing facility located in Salisbury, North Carolina, a thriving suburb steeped in history. And if you go to the last sentence, it says, we offer stellar short and long-term care with a dedicated memory unit for residents with dementia. And I want to focus on that word stellar. We offer stellar short or long-term care because when you go back and you look up the definition of stellar, it means outstanding, it means excellent, it means superior. So we'll come back to this in a little bit. Now, the facility recently had an unannounced inspection, and the nursing home was cited by the Department of Health for providing substandard care to its residents. Among the problems noted were not responding effectively or efficiently after a patient swallowed a mouse, physical altercation or fights among residents, and not notifying the family for several months after a resident had tested positive for COVID-19. Now, this seems like something out of a sci-fi television show, but it's all true, and I verified every aspect of it. I also took the time to look at the specific government documents pertaining to the case. And it's really a bad report. And because of my desire to keep this video at a level which will hold your interest, I am not going to cover everything on that report. I don't want the video to be too long because the report is 51 pages long. So I'll cover the two incidences that I believe have the highest significance. So let's begin with the mouse incident. And based on the available documents, the incident in question took place on August the 9th of this year. So it's been 3 months ago, but the findings from the investigation by the Department of Health and Human Services that was made public at the end of last month. And this relates to an elderly gentleman who became a resident at this nursing home in April of 2020. He had a diagnosis of advanced stage dementia and psychosis, and he was also found to be severely cognitively impaired, so he really needed close supervision. But he was known to wander around the nursing home, and he had a history of digging through the trash, rummaging through cabinets, eating unedible things, and stealing food from other residents' meal trays. So during this unannounced inspection by the health department, many staff members were interviewed. We'll first start with the interview conducted with the social worker. He told the investigators he first saw the resident with a food container in one hand and something else in the other hand before the resident turned around and put something in his mouth. The social worker said when the resident turned back around, he saw what appeared like a black string hanging from the resident's mouth that was approximately 3 to 4 inches long. He said he could not tell what the resident had put in his mouth, and did not report the incident to anyone. But here's my 2 cents. You're a member of this healthcare team, and you know all the residents. You've been there for a while. You know all the residents. And if you know that a resident has a history of roaming through the garbage and putting things in his mouth, seems like the first thing you would say is, "Hey, what do you have in your mouth?" But he said he didn't know what it was, and he didn't feel the need to share that information with anyone. Now, the nurse assigned to care for the resident that day stated she was at the nurse's station when the resident was walking up the hall with a styrofoam food container in his hand, and she heard the director of nursing scream out and stated she thought she was going to be sick. The nurse said the director then told her she saw the resident pick a food tray out of the trash and something was moving in his hand, and before she could stop him, he placed something that looked like a mouse in his mouth. The nurse said the resident would not open his mouth. They tried to get him to open his mouth and he wouldn't do it. She said the director then left the unit. The nurse said she was sick to her stomach and she had to leave as well and go to the bathroom. And as the nurse was making her way out of the bathroom, the nurse said she heard the nursing assistant yelling out as she rushed towards the nursing station. Seems like a whole lot of people was doing a whole lot of yelling that day. The nursing assistant told her that the resident had vomited something that looked like gristle and a tail. The nurse said she could not look at what the resident had spit up because she was too sick, and the nursing director did not look at it either. So you had a resident who was obviously in a crisis, and not one of them did anything to help that poor man. They were more concerned with themselves. The nurse said the director notified the administrator, and she was under the impression that the two of them were going to notify the physician. And you know what? That nurse didn't even bother to document what had transpired. Now, when the director of nursing was interviewed, she told the investigator she saw the resident as he walked by with a food container he had taken from the trash can in one hand and a 2-inch long dark-colored string hanging from his mouth. She said before she could stop him, he had swallowed the string. The director said she inspected the resident's mouth and there was nothing left in there. Whatever was in there, he had already swallowed it. And herein lies the contradiction, because this was inconsistent with the information provided by the assigned nurse, who said the director is the one who actually sold her. She saw something moving in the man's hand before he put it in his mouth, and that she believed it was a mouth. She also did not inspect the resident's mouth because we already told he would not open his mouth, and that the director felt sick to her stomach and left. She also did not report the incident to the physician right away. She waited until the following day to do that. And here I have to make I have to interject once more. How in the world could a director of nursing not share this information immediately? Obviously, you know he had taken the container out of the trash, and you know he had swallowed something which you said you saw moving in his hand. So how come you did not feel the need to have him checked out, especially since you have a physician on call? Or maybe you did not feel a need to be alarmed. Maybe this was a common occurrence. It was already stated that the resident had a habit of rummaging through trash and eating things. So maybe this was something that happened on a consistent basis, so no one was alarmed, allegedly. And I say allegedly because I don't know this to be a fact. And by the way, she did not document it and did not complete an incident report. And this is all just crazy, but these are the folks with professional license who are holding leadership roles in our long-term care facilities. Now, in another interview, the nursing assistant stated that sometime in the evening, she saw the resident as he arrived in the dining room for supper. She said he spit out a grayish-brown ball of fur with gristle on it. The nurse's aide said she used a glove to pick up what the resident had spit out, and she placed it in the trash. She then asked the resident to open his mouth, and there was a grayish-brown fur on the resident's tongue. The nursing assistant said she immediately reported this matter to the assigned nurse. Now again, this all took place on August the 9th, and you would think at that point someone would be taking pictures or trying to preserve a sample so a physician could see it, or even getting on the phone and insisting that somebody need to come look at that patient, but that did not occur. So the administrator of the nursing home did acknowledge that the nursing assistant did indeed report the matter, that the resident had fur in his mouth and there was gristle that could have been the mouse's tail. And with all of that information, the physician still wasn't called. He wasn't notified till the following day. And on that day, which was now the 10th, the physician still did not examine the patient, the resident, and he also did not write any orders. Now, on the 11th, the administrators contacted pest control and had them come in and check for rodents and so forth. But again, the focus was not on the resident. The focus was on looking for rodents instead of making sure that the resident was safe. It was not on the 12th, 3 days later, that something was actually done. And according to the inspection report, it was this nurse practitioner who showed up 3 days after the event that actually contacted poison control out of a concern that, one, the rat could have been poisoned, and then she was also concerned about the type of infections that rodents normally carry. Now it's 3 days now, She was told by poison control to monitor the resident for fever, for blood in his stools, and for diarrhea, and she also took the time to examine the resident for bites on his face and in his mouth. And it was only then that the family was notified that there was an incident, and the family was now told that he had swallowed a rat or that he potentially swallowed a mouse. They were told that he ingested an unidentifiable object. Now, the director then acknowledged that she should have notified the physician immediately when this incident occurred, but then again, it probably would not have made a difference because when he found out, he still didn't do anything anyway. So with the exception of the nurse practitioner who took action on day number 3, all of the individuals in that hospital failed miserably to take care of that resident. And I want to briefly tell you about another investigation. There were several investigations being done during this period. And I want just to kind of mention the second one because I think it's important. And it had to do with a patient, a resident, who had a diagnosis of a traumatic brain injury and seizure disorder. And this particular resident had been at that facility since January of 2020. And according to the nurse's note, the resident had tested positive for COVID-19 on January 12th of this year. And he was transferred from his regular room to a quarantine unit. Now, the nurse did not indicate on the nurse whether the responsible party or the next of kin had been notified of the change. And it was not just that the resident was positive for COVID-19, but anytime you make a change to a resident in a nursing home, you're obligated to notify the next of kin. And it was on September the 25th that the investigators contacted the next of kin, and that person told them they had never been notified that their family member was positive for COVID-19. So you had a resident who was diagnosed positive in January, and here it is September, and that is the first time that family members were even notified that there was a problem. There is so much more information in this report of this investigation by the North Carolina Department of Health. And what I'll do, I'll post a link to it in my description box just in case someone wants to go back and look at it. But there's repeated incidents of hitting and biting, residents were fighting, incidences of poor wound care, of staff not following the CDC guidelines for COVID testing prior to an outbreak. It appears there were 15 complaints made against the agency, and I believe it says 5 was substantiated, and there was some very serious accusations. But this is the second case I've discussed regarding nursing home residents. You may remember a case from last month where there was as many as 100 live maggots. They were found in the wound of an ankle of a nursing home resident. I thought that was bad, but this year is so much worse. And there's a lesson here. Check up on your loved ones. Drop by for unannounced visits just to make sure they're getting the quality of care they deserve. Now, I went back and I looked at the philosophy statement for this nursing home, capitalizing on that final sentence that says, we offer stellar short and long-term care with a dedicated member unit for residents with dementia. And keep in mind that stellar means outstanding, stellar means excellent, stellar means superior. If you fit into these characteristics, then your patients with dementia shouldn't have to be roaming around eating out of trash cans, and when you have an entire staff having to engage in remedial training about basic care practices and principles, maybe it's time for a change in leadership. Because when the leadership is unable to provide basic guidance to the staff in executing care for residents, maybe it's time for a change. I'm just saying. And that's all I have for you right now. Feel free to leave me a comment below and let me know what you think about this video. And by all means, feel free to like it and to share it. And if you haven't done so already, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel by clicking on that red subscribe button. It's on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And if you click on this notification bell right here, you'll be the first to know whenever a new video is uploaded. I thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.